yourself together? Good afternoon, everyone, and a heartfelt welcome to the I Am platform, Vision, Voice, and the Future of Inclusive Action. I am Lorna Mae Silcott, the Executive Director for the Maryland Statewide Independent Living Council, better known as the Maryland Silk. I couldn't be more excited to kick off today's program. For those new to us, the I Am platform is all about providing the information and education needed for us to be inspired and motivated to action and to lead a more empowering life. Now, whether you're a self advocate, an industry professional, or a community leader, this platform is for you. Now, the return of the I Am sessions. Now, we are thrilled to announce the return of the I Am sessions to our community. This platform is proudly presented by the Maryland Statewide Independent Living Council, better known as the Maryland Silk, and the Maryland Centers for Independent Living, better known as the CILs. This collaboration is rooted in our shared commitment to empower, educate, and uplift people with disabilities by equipping our community with the resources, knowledge, and confidence to use their voices for change. The I Am series features 6 powerful sessions, which will take place on the third Monday of every month, starting at 2 p.m. Our very first session, which is today, is Elect to Use Your Voice, Voting Rights and Access for People with Disabilities. Now, our agenda. We're pleased to host a powerful 90-minute session focused on the practical strategies for empowerment through voting. We're starting with 3 fantastic speakers to educate and motivate. They will be introduced shortly. We will then roll right into our question and answer segment. Now, just some housekeeping guidelines. Before we dive in, let's quickly cover a few housekeeping guidelines to ensure a smooth and rewarding experience for everyone. Asking questions. When to ask. We know you'll have brilliant questions, and we absolutely want to hear them. However, to respect our speakers' flow, we kindly ask that you hold your questions until they have completed their presentations. How to ask. Please place your questions in the chat box at any time, or you can use the raise hand feature and wait for someone to call on you. A dedicated team member will be monitoring the chat and hand raises and will either ask your question on your behalf or invite you to speak once the presentation has been completed. In summary, place your questions in the chat or raise your hands, and we will get to as many questions as possible after the speakers have finished. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. It is with great pleasure for me to introduce the Executive Director, Independence Now, Miss Diane Palmer. Diane?
Well, hello, and I must say, Lorna Mae, I always admire your enthusiasm and passion for the work that we all do each and every day to serve our consumers. Thank you so much for partnering with us, for being a great ally and also an advocate for the causes that we serve here. As Lorna Mae mentioned, I'm Diane Palmer, Executive Director of Independence Now, and we are one of 7 Centers for Independent Living across the state of Maryland. We are among a network of Centers for Independent Living across the country. Our particular CIL serves Montgomery and Prince George's County. And today, as Lorna Mae had alluded to, we are thrilled to bring back the I Am series. And the intent of it is to educate, inspire, and engage you, and to motivate you with topical issues. And I must say, given our topic today, it is such a relevant topic for many reasons, most of which we have upcoming general elections in many towns and many different areas. And so we want, especially our audience of people with disabilities, to be educated and informed about their voter rights, exactly as the topic of this session says, to elect to use your voice. So to give you the tools, the resources, the accommodations that everyone is entitled to. So we have three dynamic speakers. I had the pleasure of speaking with them last week, and they will do 20-minute segments. First, we are going to have Dr. Gilberto Zelaya. And what I'm going to do is share my screen and got a couple of slides for our speakers. So let me know. I'm going to have my PowerPoint. Are folks seeing the PowerPoint? Go back. Let me go back. Okay.
This is Aubriana. We can see the PowerPoint.
Thank you for letting me know. Great. Okay. So Dr. Gilberto Zelaya, our first speaker, is the Community Engagement and Public Relations Officer of the Montgomery County Board of Elections. And I will introduce him and have him do his presentation. And then I'll also queue up our following two speakers. So Dr. Gilberto Zelaya firmly believes that community mobilization and empowerment cannot rest on the pillars of procrastination. Dr. Z, as he is known in the community, is the Community Engagement and Public Relations Officer at the Montgomery County Board of Elections. And in this role, he is responsible for managing community relations and empowerment activities with an emphasis on Section 203 compliance. His signature initiative is Future Vote, a program he developed in 2004 to increase current and future voter knowledge, education, and to strengthen ties related to civic participation for Montgomery County's youth and families by actively providing an opportunity for civic duty, while emphasizing the importance of preserving participatory democracy. Prior to joining the BOE, he served as the epidemiological, I don't believe I said that, but I think I did, program officer at the Self-Reliance Foundation, developing and implementing mobilization efforts throughout Africa, Latin, and North America. Dr. Zelaya is a graduate of George Washington University and currently resides in Clarksburg, Maryland, with his wife, Karen, of 22 years, and sons, Sebastian and Julian. So with that, Dr. Zelaya, I'm going to turn it over to you. And just to let you know, I'll be introducing following him and giving their bios on Aubriana Wilson from Rev Up International and the American Association for People with Disabilities, and Laura Power, co-lead for Rev Up, the state coalition. So I'll give more of a formal introduction of them. But at this time, Dr. Zelaya, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Perfect. Good afternoon, and thank you. Full disclosure, I am not driving, okay? So I am not driving at the moment. I am a passenger. When we scheduled this incredible opportunity to engage the community, my calendar was wide open. Unbeknownst to me, my personal and my professional calendar did not merge. And so when the date and these alerts came, I'm right now at a college visit with my son. So we're done with the visit. We're heading back to DC, but I could not find a quiet location. So this is the reason why I am in an automobile, but I'm a passenger in the rear seat. So I'm not driving. So number one. I am Gilberto Zelaya, as Ms. Palmer communicated. I appreciate this opportunity to engage you all. In the state of Maryland, our elections are next year. There's a lot of municipalities, a lot of other different states also have their corresponding elections. I know that we have a mixed bag of individuals from different Maryland counties and maybe probably Virginia or DC. But what's important is the work that we do in general as we lead up to an election. As an election administrator for Montgomery County, the procedures that we take is taken across the state of Maryland, but also similar actions are taking place in other parts of the Union, the 49 states, plus the District of Columbia. From the onset, a lot of voters will ask, what do we do between elections? And I can tell you, well, we're not taking a 13-month sabbatical until the next election comes. There's a lot of work that we do between elections to get ready for the next opportunity for our voters to cast their constitutional right to a secret ballot and or to vote independently. Right now, as we speak, we have teams that are visiting every single polling place and early voting center to make sure that number one, they are accessible. Number two, in every location that we visit, we do site surveys. The site surveys not only include the number of power outlets, but more importantly, how many curve cups are in the facility, how many public modes of transportation are available to those polling place locations. We also ensure that all of the entrances have push plates. So when a voter comes, regardless of circumstance, they can push the push plate and the doors will open. Because under requirements, we must ensure that our polling places open at 7 a.m. and that they close at 8 p.m. on a given day. So next year, our primary will be held from early voting from the 11th through the 18th of June 2026, and the primary election will be June 23rd of 2006. Once our team members visit every location site survey, we will also visit them once again 90 days prior to the election. Of course, if we do a site survey today at, let's say, Halliwell's Middle School, we do not know, and hopefully we communicate with the school system or the university if we're using one of their facilities for a polling place to make sure that there's no construction that's going to take place. If there is construction, let's say they're remodeling a middle school that happens to be in a polling place on election day, we get that calendar a year in advance. So if that facility is being remodeled, we will notify all of the voters in that particular district that that school will be closed between X day and X day, and that their new location will be X location. So we move Halliwell's Middle School to, let's say, Clarksburg High School. We will work with the voters and with the facilities to ensure that the polling place, number one, has operable push plates, that there's curb cuts, that there's public transportation, that there's ample handicap parking, that there's van accessible handicap parking, and that there's an X amount of number of parking places, spots, but also there's plenty of lighting. So the facility is secure, not only inside the polling place, but also outside the polling place. Once those surveys have been done, right, we submit that to the State Board of Elections. After that, our team internally are testing the equipment that's going to be used on election day or during early voting for those voters voting independently. Now, the touchscreen, we use the ESNS touchscreens to go through what is called logic and accuracy testing. We make sure that the equipment themselves, the touchscreens are calibrated, that the keyboards that's attached to the touchscreens, if voters need to use the keyboard and the toggles, that they work. Also, the equipment, the ESNS touchscreens, individuals who need or have what is called the SIP, puff and sip equipment to make the equipment operative with their equipment that they use to vote independently. We also make sure that the screens and the ballot is able to be magnified. Also for voters who are colorblind, that it has the contrast and also magnification. The screen itself is color, but at the same time, for those who may be colorblind, it will do a black and gray and white spectrum. In addition, in specifically Montgomery County, Maryland, we're under Section 203 of the 1975 Voter Rights Act. Everything in our county must be in English and in Spanish. This also includes the audio on the touchscreen. So if there's a voter who wants to vote independently, and let's say they have challenges with their visions. For example, if I leave my glasses at home, I'm going to have to magnify my ballot because I can't see. These are bifocals. But then what happens is, if English is not my native language and Spanish is, then I can listen to the audio. If I'm a blind voter or have a poor sight, I could also listen to the audio, and we could also darken the screen so no one could see over the shoulder of that particular voter, because the whole goal is independent voting. That's the goal. Um, in addition to the touchscreens, we do have paper ballots for those individuals who would like to use the paper ballot. We will provide the voter a ballot and the pen, but also you have the right to request to use the ballot marking device, which is the touchscreen. Once you check in, prior to the early voting season, many months before, individuals have three options to vote. Number one is voting by mail. It used to be called absentee voting. When I joined the Board of Elections in 2003, there were two ways to vote: voting on election day or voting an absentee ballot. But you needed a reason to vote a paper or absentee ballot. Whether it was professional or personal reasons, you would submit an application, and the corresponding Board of Elections in Maryland would send that voter by mail their vote by mail absentee ballot. Many, many years have gone by. Now we have independent voting through the web delivery mail in ballot. And the way that works is a voter could request online or download an application from our website, or they could call our office. Individuals could also make an appointment or walk into our office, and we will help the voter submit a request to vote by mail. Now, if the voter wants to vote a web delivery ballot, it doesn't mean that you will vote online. What it means is the Maryland State Board of Elections will email the voter instructions to download the corresponding ballot. And using their automated systems, they can make their selections on that ballot, and then they can print that ballot. Of course, you will need to have someone to assist to mail that ballot back, but also there's options to fax the ballot. Now, if you fax the ballot, obviously individuals will see the ballot, but there's a whole procedures, checks and balances. Everything is done at the office with bipartisan teams. Your ballot is sacred and is secure. So after you print your ballot, if you do the web delivery ballot, you just follow the instructions. You mail that ballot back to your corresponding local Board of Elections in Maryland. Similar procedures will exist in the District of Columbia and in Virginia. And then we will secure your web delivery print at home or at the office ballot, and then we will secure it and we'll introduce it into the canvas, which means that we will count. Now, what's important to communicate is, even if there's thousands of votes between candidate A and candidate B, your ballot will be counted. It doesn't matter what's the spread amongst the candidates, your vote will be counted. Okay, and that's full disclosure, because that's one of the urban myths that I've heard over the years, that if the difference between the candidates are so vast that the mail-in or vote-at-home ballots won't be counted, and that's false. We count every single ballot. Our job is to count. Now, for those individuals who are not voting by mail or the web delivery, independent voting at home when you print after you make the selections, you have two options that are in person. Now, the first option will be early voting. Montgomery County has expanded over the years from 5 early voting centers to 14. Depending on the county in Maryland in which you live, you may have anywhere from 2 all the way to 14. It really depends on the density of how many registered voters there is in that county. Montgomery County being the most populous county by those who are registered, we have over 700,000 registered voters. Okay. And because of that, we've expanded from 5 over the years to 14. Now, prior to voting in person, we will mail what is called the sample ballot, and all of this information that we're communicated will be shared to you as well. Now, if individuals would like the sample ballot in large print or in an electronic text format, you could contact the Board of Elections and we will send a corresponding sample ballot that includes all of the instructions, the locations and the addresses of the early voting centers. And also it will communicate the corresponding location where we would like for you to vote, which is based on your residential address. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, what's wonderful or kind of interesting about early voting is that you are not tied to the nearest or closest early voting center. If you happen to live in Silver Spring and you're visiting loved ones, let's say in Germantown, you could vote at the Germantown Rec Center during early voting. You don't have to be worried about needing to go to the nearest one. You could go to any of the 14 early voting centers in Montgomery County if you live in Montgomery County. If you live in Prince George's County, you have X amount of early voting centers. All that information will be sent to you, and all that information is also available on our website. Once again, you could call your local Board of Elections, and if you want this information in an email format and text format, because a lot of them may be text image heavy, and depending, those images may not correspond to anything. We're cognizant that sometimes you need information in text format. And so we have documents that we could share and email to our voters if you need that information in that format, because we're cognizant that every voter is unique. And the uniqueness of every voters constitute that we need to make sure that we have the mechanism in place to serve every single voter, regardless of the circumstance. So if you vote early, one thing that's important, especially if you're voting in person, is that at times you may be asked to present an ID. There's different nuances. Most of our voters will register to vote during an interaction at the Motor Vehicles Administration, whether you're getting a driver's license, a learner's permit, or a Motor Vehicles Administration ID. The officer is required to ask that individual if they meet the state requirements to register to vote, which means you must be at least 16, you must live in the state of Maryland, and you must be a U.S. citizen. Now, for those individuals who are 16, you could pre-register, but the first time you will vote is you have to turn 18 by the general election. So if there's any individuals that are 16 or 17, you must turn 18 on or before next year primary election, which is June 23rd, 2026. An interesting note, if you happen to be a 17-year-old, like my son, as long as that individual turns 18 by November 3rd, which is the general election date. November 3rd is the general election date of next year. And as long as that voter turns 18 by the 3rd of November of next year, they could vote as a 17-year-old in the primary election. Okay. So that's some good information to share with your loved ones. Now, if for whatever reason you forget your ID or you don't have a form that shows your residential address, you could bring a bank statement, a phone bill, a utility bill, and you also could register to vote the same day that you present yourself during early voting or on election day. So let's say you moved into Maryland after the voter registration deadline, but on or before the early voting season. You could bring an ID, a Maryland state ID, a driver's license, or a permit. But if you didn't have a chance to go to the Motor Vehicles Administration, because you know how chaotic it is to move, you could bring a bank statement that has your current Montgomery County address with your name, a utility bill, or other governmental document that says, let's say John Smith lives in 101 Main Street in Rockville, and it's a current bill, etc. We could actually register you to vote, and you could vote during early voting on election day. What's very important before voting in person also is making sure that your Maryland voter registration or your corresponding state voter registration is up to date. So let's say you live in apartment 101 on Main Street and you live in apartment A, okay? And let's say you need a larger apartment complex, you got married, you have a newborn coming down the line, whatever the circumstance, and now you need a larger apartment and you move to apartment D. Even though it's in the same apartment complex, for us, it is a new address. We need to have your new address, and you need to contact the Board of Elections. You need to submit your voter registration online. You could send a paper application. You could walk into our office. We do about 500 community events a year. And about 3 weeks ago, we were at the offices, Ms. Palmer's offices, and we did a voter registration education. We brought a touch screen, and we did a demonstration of the equipment. And we actually had two individuals who needed to update their voter registration at that event. And we took those and we expedited. One was a Prince George's County resident, and one was a Montgomery County resident. So we expedited and we overnight expressed the applicant from Prince George's County. And hopefully by now, they should have received the notification that their voter registration has been updated. Now, when you receive that notification update, it would also tell you where you will vote on election day. But once again, you're not tied to a particular early voting center. And the reason why it's important, if you don't want to vote by mail, and if you don't want to vote early, you're a purist and you believe that voters should vote on election day, that's fine. You know, we're here to serve. So what you will do is on the back of your sample ballot, or you could call the Board of Elections, and we will provide you where we would like for you to present yourself to vote on election day. So in particular, my election day polling place is Halliwell's Middle School. However, as we all know, traffic in the DMV area is horrible, right? And let's say I'm having lunch with a couple of friends and it's 7:30 and I'm enjoying myself in Silver Spring and I'm thinking, oh, I have to vote today. Today's election day. There's no way humanly possible, unless I could fly, will make it to Clarksburg from Silver Spring in 20 minutes. So if need be, I could walk into any election day polling place and I will get in line and I will communicate I am not in the right polling place. When the check-in election worker will check me in, they will notice that I am out of precinct and they will ask, oh, it seems that you need to vote at Halliwell's Middle School in Clarksburg, but you're here at Montgomery Blair High School in Silver Spring. They will give you what is called a provisional ballot. At no time will any election official legally can turn you away. So if you happen to be at the wrong location, or let's say you never updated your voter registration with the Board of Elections because you were busy and you forgot to notify us, and you went to your old polling place that you went in 2024, never fear, we will not turn you away. You will need to vote a provisional ballot. And that's a safeguard to ensure, number one, that you don't vote twice, because that's illegal. And number two is, if for whatever reason you're voting out of your polling place, it's a safeguard for us to ensure you don't vote twice. But it also is a safeguard to you as a registered voter, because it is our job to serve your voting rights. So by voting provisionally, then when you submit, our staff will look your voter information up. We look at your record. We will notice that you're voting out of precinct, and most likely, depending on the ballot style, because there's elected officials that represent, let's say, Down County, Silver Spring, Wheaton, Glenmont, but my elected representatives in Up County, Clarksburg, Germantown, Gaithersburg, are very different. But what we do is we will ensure that we will accept your ballot in full or in part, because you cannot technically vote for an elected official that doesn't correspond to your address because you are in the wrong precinct. The only time that we will reject a submitted provisional ballot is, let's say a voter actually lives in the District of Columbia and they happen to be in Montgomery County. There's no way they can make it to the District of Columbia. And we've seen where individuals who live in Virginia or DC will vote at the last minute. But normally we do everything in our power to secure that individuals' voting rights are intact. But it's important that prior, if you are voting in person, that your information is current and up to date. And there's many ways of doing it. You could call the State Board of Elections. You could call the Montgomery County Board of Elections. You could go on our website and ascertain that information. You can even text yourself the word check, CHECK, the word check, and text it to the number 77788. 3728. Text the word check to 77788. And this system works for the entire state of Maryland. So if you're in Prince George's, or let's say you live in Hagerstown, Maryland, or Montgomery County, it doesn't matter. Text the word check to 77788, and you could see number one, if your voter registration is current, if you have a desire to change your party. But something that's very important that I will share with you, Maryland is one of the states that we have something called closed primary elections. So if there's a particular candidate that you want to support with your vote, whether that individual is registered Democrat or is a registered Republican, you must be registered under one of those two flags, Republican or Democrat, to vote for that particular candidate. If you happen to be unaffiliated, you will vote for school board. And the school board is not attached to a party. But if there's a particular candidate for county executive, county council, maybe it's important that you are registered as a Democrat or registered as a Republican if there's a candidate that you want to support with your vote. And that's in the state of Maryland. Other states, you have access to all candidates. But as long as I've been at the Board of Elections for 22 years, you must be a registered voter under that party if there's a candidate that you want to vote. Now, at any time, you could unaffiliate and affiliate with one of the two major parties for the primary, and then you could unaffiliate for the general. It's up to you. You have every right. If you want to stay as an unaffiliated voter, you have the right as well. I just wanted to share that information because a lot of voters sometimes get upset that you show up to vote, you want to vote for this candidate, and you happen to be unaffiliated. And that's why it's very important that you text the word check to 77788 or go to our website, because in that way you can see if you need to update your voter registration, if you need to maybe update the address, even though you moved in the same apartment complex, or even if you moved across the street, we need to know, because moving across the street could change the location where you will vote on election day. But for early voting, it doesn't matter. So, and once, if you want to vote in person, because I don't want to forget this, if you happen to need assistance, both election judges, the chief judges of opposite parties, are there to help. They will fill out something called the voter assistance form. They will fill the form out. They'll help you prep the ballot touchscreen, the touchscreen unit. They will set up for you. They'll give you instructions, and then they'll leave you so you can vote independently. If you need assistance, you could raise your hand. You can ask your particular questions, but everything is done by bipartisan team, a registered Democrat and a registered Republican that's serving as an election worker at that polling place. You also have the right to bring a loved one, a neighbor, a friend, your spouse, your BFF. It doesn't matter. You could bring anyone with you to the polls, especially maybe English, maybe Spanish is not your native language and you speak Korean. We try our best to recruit individuals with language competency in one of the 150 beautiful languages that represent Montgomery County. But a lot of times we don't get them all in at the same polling place. So if you happen to speak, let's say, French, and our touchscreen by law must be in English and in Spanish. If you have a significant other, someone you trust, they could also assist you. And they too will fill out what is called the voter assistance form. And that individual, since they're only providing assistance, they do not need to be a US citizen, okay, because they're not voting, but they will need to fill out the information in addition to the two chief judges of that polling place or early voting center and the voter, because we want to make sure that you are cognizant that this individual, I entrusted them to assist me cast my ballot. And one thing I want to share before I leave is a wonderful story when I first joined the Board of Elections that I shared with the team last week. When I first started, I came from a nonprofit, and I'm trying to feel exactly what's my job. And I know it entailed about engagement, making sure that the process is open and transparent and available to every single voter. So there was a voter sitting on a park bench, and it looked like he was waiting for a ride. And the gentleman, he was blind because he had a walking stick, and he was just sitting there, I guess, waiting for a ride. I went into the polling place. I did my business. I did what I needed to do. And after an hour, I walked out and he was still sitting there. And I asked him, "Hi, I'm Dr. Zelaya. I'm with the Board of Elections. I walked by and I saw you there. Do you need, are you waiting for a ride or is there someone you need to call?" And he's like, "No, no, actually, I'm just here enjoying the weather. Actually, sit down. Let me talk to you." And he gave me his life story, which was really pretty. And what he said was, when I turned 18, my mom always took me to the polling place. I lost my vision. I lost my vision because of disease. I was really young. But then when I was able to register to vote, my mother would take me to the polls. Then my mother passed, and then my dad would take me to the polls until like my early 20s. Once my dad passed, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. My wife, who was my girlfriend officially, and then my wife, she would take me to the polls. And a couple of years passed, she passed. He was in his upper 80s, and his son would take him to vote. But his son now works at the West Coast. And he said, after many years, after 60 plus years, today was the day that he voted independently because he used the touch screen and he checked in, he gave the information. They set him up on the ES&S touchscreen. He put on his headphones. The election judge darkened the screen. They filled out the voter assistance form. They set him up, gave him instructions, and he said, and they walked away. They left me by myself with the touchscreen. And after all of these years, 60 plus years, today was the first time that I voted independently. I didn't need my son. I didn't need my wife. I didn't need my mother nor my father. And so at that time, it came full circle why it was my responsibility to ensure that that gentleman and the other 699,999 voters in Montgomery County are able to vote independently. But I can't do this alone. And I appreciate Ms. Palmer and the other speakers today for bringing us together because there is a lot of information, but there's a lot more mis and disinformation. So it's very important that we get together to talk about these things to, number one, alleviate any anxiety or stress that misinformation brings, but also to know that we are here to serve. I work for you. I've been working at the Board of Elections for 20 plus years. I enjoy what I do, but I am your servant. So if there's anything you need from my agency, from me as a personal friend, as an election professional, I'm here to serve. So I'm going to pass the baton because I know I could talk forever, but I appreciate you all for being here today.
Dr. Zelaya, thank you so much for your very instructional and informative, while a passenger in a car, no less.
Yeah.
To provide and present all of that outstanding information. I've heard a lot of information before about voting, but I learned several new things that I did not know about the provisional voting opportunity today. I did not know about check 77788. So that's wonderful. I'm sure other people are, learning more information. And that's what these sessions are all about, to enlighten and inform. Thank you so much. And the information that you gave as well, I'm sure can be very relevant if people are not living, of course, in either of our two counties. I do know, and I want to thank and welcome Peer Centers for Independent Living staff that I do see on the call as well. Wherever you are, all of this does apply to you. And I think the real lesson as well is to be informed and don't be shy about asking questions. Go to your Board of Elections, do so in advance. And as well, I'm going to also encourage people now can go ahead and drop any of their questions that they may have based on Dr. Zelaya's presentation in the chat. Because as mentioned, once we complete the other two speakers, we will be open. We are hosting this session until 3:30. So we definitely want to welcome your questions. Or at that time as well, you can raise your hand in the chat too. So I want to thank you very much, Dr. Zelaya. That was great information. And also, I'm hoping that there's great news and also good next steps for your son in terms of his college pursuit. So congratulations. Wish him
Thank you.
the All right, so I'm going to introduce our other two speakers. So what I'm going to do is, again, share my screen for the introductions for the other speakers that we have. All right, so next, Aubriana Wilson is from Rev Up National. We're going national. We did the local, and now we're expanding this national in terms of our next speakers. Aubriana, she, her, is the State Voting Coalitions Coordinator at the American Association of People with Disabilities. In this role, Aubriana supports the Rev Up Network, empowering the disability vote from local to national levels. Before joining AAPD, Aubriana served as a program coordinator for the National Clearinghouse on Disability and Exchange at Mobility International USA on behalf of the U.S. Department of State. As a Thomas J. Watson Fellow, Aubriana joined disability communities across 8 countries, conducting participatory research on disability innovation and empowerment. This work deepened her commitment to intersectional, cross-movement, and cross-disability solidarity. Aubriana is passionate about co-creating a future where no one is left behind. And joining her with this next segment of our presentations today is Laura Power. Laura serves as the co-lead of the Rev Up State Coalition in Pennsylvania. She is currently an intern for the Rev Up Pennsylvania Disability Voting Campaign led by Bender Leadership Academy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She completed her Master of Arts in Sociology in December of 2022. She participated in the inaugural semester in Washington politics through George Washington University, completing a disability advocacy certificate program in conjunction with the American Association of People with Disabilities internship program. Laura is the board president for Creative Citizen Studios and serves on the steering committee for the Western Pennsylvania Disability History and Action Consortium, and participated in the Allegheny Region for Pennsylvania ARC initiative of COVID-19 disparities. She's also an experienced advocate who frequently speaks at events related to disability rights. Recently, Laura was named first runner-up as well in the Ms. Wheelchair Pennsylvania 2026 competition. So following with Dr. Zelaya having superb expertise and credentials are these 2 ladies who I will now turn it over to do their presentation. So I'm going to switch to get their PowerPoint. Also, too, while we're on this, thank our ASL interpreters that are here today, Dewan Snowden and Jay Wexler. So I want to thank both of them. I'm going to go back and get the presentation. Go over here 1 second. All right, should be seeing their slides now. And now turning it over to you, Aubriana and Laura.
Thank you so much, Diane. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for welcoming us today. My name is Aubriana Wilson. My pronouns are she, her. And for a visual description, I'm a young mixed race white and Japanese woman with long brown hair. I'm wearing glasses and a striped gray top, and I have a green virtual background. I'm a voting rights advocate with lived experience of disability, and today my co-presenter Laura and I are so excited to speak to you about powering the disability vote. So we'll start with brief introductions and then give a quick overview of the Rev Up disability voting movement. From there, we'll look at disability voting nationally and also think about your rights as Maryland voters. And then we'll think about how you can join the movement and take action in your communities. Feel free to share questions or thoughts at any time through the chat, and we're really glad that you're here learning with us today. Next slide, please. The American Association of People with Disabilities, or AAPD, is a national disability-led and cross-disability rights organization that works to increase the political and economic power of people with disabilities. Our work spans across many areas, but a focus for us is ensuring that people with disabilities have access to their rights as voters. That's where the Rev Up movement comes in. I serve as the State Voting Coalition's coordinator at AAPD, and together with my colleague Alexia Kimmerling, we make the Rev Up national team here at AAPD. We're so lucky to be able to work alongside advocates, organizations, and coalition leaders nationwide, like Laura, my fabulous co-presenter, who I will pass to now. Next slide.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laura Power. I am a white woman with short blonde hair. I wear glasses and use a motorized wheelchair. I have been a Rev Up intern / coalition co-lead since 2023 for the Rev Up Pennsylvania Coalition, and we are a non-partisan statewide cross-disability voting coalition dedicated to making sure Pennsylvanians with disabilities are registered, educated, and free from barriers to exercise their right to vote. And for a visual description, it has the Rev Up logo. The slide has the Rev Up logo with Pennsylvania in capitals and a silhouette of Pennsylvania below that. Next slide, please. And the Rev Up stands for Register, Educate, Vote, Use Your Power. And it was founded by disability activists in Texas in 2016. The image on the slide shows a group of disability activists of varying races, genders, and disability types standing in front of the New Jersey State House and wearing Rev Up t-shirts and holding banners that say, "Make the disability vote count," and Rev Up. Next slide, please. Rev Up is a national movement focused on A, increasing civic engagement in the disability community, and B, improving access to the vote for individuals with disabilities. The picture on the slide shows two wheelchair users, a white woman and a Latinx man, in front of a Rev Up table, and the woman is holding a register to vote clipboard for Rev Up. Next.
Thank you so much,
And
Laura.
I'm going to turn it over to Adriana to tell you more about that.
Thank you so much. So although Rev Up and AAPD operate on a national level, our work is rooted in change at the state and local levels. Through our 20 Rev Up state coalitions and growing, change happens on the ground. This is also because of necessity. Each state has different voting laws and regulations. And so on the slide, there's a display of a map of the United States, and 20 states are located, showing where Rev Up coalitions currently exist. Maryland does not currently have a disability voting coalition, so we would love to see one emerge in the future and encourage you to explore if this would be something that you would be interested in getting involved with your local communities. Next slide, please. So what do Rev Up state coalitions do? So many amazing actions. For example, some coalitions work on voter outreach. We work to register and support disabled voters in community and in congregate settings. State coalitions also increase election accessibility, from legislative advocacy to working and monitoring polling places to building relationships with local elected officials and Board of Elections. They also fight voter suppression. That looks like showing up for our rights from the State House to the courthouse. We work to build civic engagement by convening local leaders, or we also distribute grants to support grassroots work. And we often try to grow visibility of the movement. That can look like hosting nonpartisan candidate forums on disability and engaging with upcoming campaigns. Wondering if anyone in the audience knows the number of eligible voters with disabilities in the US. Feel free to add into the chat a guess of how many eligible voters with disabilities are in our nation. No worries if not. I also didn't know this number. Next slide, please. So there are over 40 million eligible voters with disabilities. That's about 1 in 6 of all eligible voters in the United States. We are part of every community, live in every region, and represent a powerful voting bloc. Next slide, please.
So, thank you, Adriana. So breaking it down and going off of what Adriana said, 1.1 million of those 40.2 million voters come from Maryland, which is awesome. And when you factor in the fact that the disability community is not just us, but when you include caregivers, the number goes to 70 million. Maybe that's why Lisa Short, who is the head of the Rutgers Institute on Disability Voting, referred to people with disabilities as the sleeping tiger of American politics, because we are an untapped resource. And the image on the slide shows a Black woman in a manual wheelchair smiling and wearing a Rev Up t-shirt. She's holding a banner that says, "I vote because why not me?" And she has red braids. Next slide, please. So just imagine the impact of all those numbers. And feel free to put in the chat or raise your hand and comment. What would policies look like if more disabled people voted for policies that supported them? Or if more disabled people ran for office, what would the world look like? Any thoughts? Can anybody see that? Because I unfortunately...
No worries, Laura. I threw into the chat an idea around more inclusion, access, and opportunities for all.
Okay, so no worries if you can't answer this loaded question. Thank you, Adriana. Next slide. So we know that there's federal elections every 4 years, but the local elections that are on the ballot in 2025 matter as well. There's state elections for like senators and stuff that decide how they do things like decide how Medicaid and Medicare work. And then there's city officials who make decisions around things like transportation, policing, the park system, and more. And then the school board decides what happens with education funding and policies. So in a lot of ways, these elections have more of an impact on our day-to-day lives than the federal ones. And it's really important to vote in these elections because every vote counts. There's the mayor of Naples, Florida, won her election by just 22 votes. And a Supreme Court justice in North Carolina won her election by 734 votes out of 5.5 million votes counted. So every little vote makes a difference. And no matter what election you're talking about, all people elected decide on how the government spends its money and if that money is used to help people with disabilities. So it's important that we vote and make our voices heard. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Laura. So there typically is a turnout gap between disabled and non-disabled voters. Some people may interpret the turnout gap meaning that disabled people are less likely to vote. But as we know, disabled people often have no choice but to get engaged civically as we work to fight for inclusion and fight for our livelihoods. We believe the turnout gap exists because systemic barriers prevent people with disabilities from casting their votes. Barriers can include navigating inaccessibility at polling places, voter suppression laws, harmful stigma, and people doubting our capacity. It can also look like strict voter ID laws that can create challenges for people who might not have an ID. Also, accessible information about how, where, and when to vote can be hard to find. And there also can be logistical issues like might not having access to accessible transportation. There might be long lines or complicated mail-in voting rules. These are barriers that we in our communities work to break down. And on the slide, there's a black and white photo of Reverend Denise Kurth in her wheelchair in front of two campaign signs. She's holding a sign that says, "We can't vote here." Behind her are people with disabilities in wheelchairs and using mobility aids. Reverend Denise Kurth was a fierce disabled advocate, and this is a photo of her on Election Day in 1986, protesting a lack of accessibility at the Baldwin School. She also spoke to Congress at hearings leading to the passing of the Americans of Disabilities Act. And this is a quote from her, "We are not asking for pity. We are not even asking for your sympathy. All we ask is that you make the promises and opportunities that America strives to offer everyone, the respect and dignity we deserve as free and responsible citizens." End quote. Next slide, please. So the good news is that we know how to solve these problems. It's not a mystery. We know what strong, inclusive election policy looks like, and we know what supports disabled voters, especially disabled voters of colors, need. That's empowering because we understand the solutions, and therefore we can advocate for real change. And we're already seeing so much progress. Between 2020 and 2022, the disability voter turnout gap was cut nearly in half. And that's a sign that when barriers are removed and information is accessible, disabled people show up and use our right to vote. Next slide. There are several key federal protections that help ensure voting access for all people. The Voting Rights Act protects against racial discrimination in voting and guarantees the right to receive assistance when voting. The Voting Accessibility for Elderly and Handicapped Act requires that polling places be physically accessible. The Americans with Disabilities Act covers all aspects of voting: registration, the polling place, election websites, and the act of casting a ballot. It also makes clear that being under guardianship alone cannot be used to take away someone's right to vote. And the National Voter Registration Act requires that government offices provide public assistance, also offer voter registration services. And lastly, the Help America Vote Act requires that every polling place have at least one accessible voting machine so that disabled voters can vote privately and independently. And on the slide is a young person with olive-toned skin and two French braids smiling in front of a college campus building. She holds a sign that says, in quotes, "I vote because Judy Heumann fought for me." And Judy Heumann was a disability rights activist. Next slide. So we really believe that it's so important to know your rights. So you have the right to vote privately and independently and to vote at an accessible polling place. And like Dr. Azalea said, if you need help, you can receive assistance from two poll workers or a person of your choice. And there are a few exceptions. Your assistant cannot be your employer, it cannot be a union representative or a candidate on the ballot. And for an image description, there's a young Black woman demonstrating how to use an accessible voting machine to a young Latinx person. Next slide, and I'll pass it back to Laura.
So, quiz time. Who remembers what Rev Up stands for? Any takers? Or should I have Brianna help us out again? Okay.
I can help out. It took me a long time to learn the acronym too. So it stands for Register, Educate, Vote. Use your power.
Yay. Top of the class. Yeah. Next slide, please. So Dr. Sly talked about the register, educate, and vote a little bit, but I want to talk about the last piece, which is use your power. And part of that is advocating if you have access barriers at the polls. No one can tell you to prove your disability or ask what your disability is. They're not allowed to do that. So, Brianna is going to give you a number you can call in case you have access concerns at the polls. And if it's possible, you should stay at the polls till you cast your ballot and make sure your vote counts and makes a difference. So, Brianna, take it away with the phone number.
Thank you, Laura. So this is a number that you can call if you're experiencing any issues at the polls, and it is 1-866-687-8683. And I can add that in the chat.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So before we close it out, I wanted to tell a quick little story about what kind of impact having a coalition can have. Like, as a coalition lead for Rev Up Pennsylvania, I have had the opportunity to go to organizations and discuss with them the importance of voting and discuss with the group members why that's necessary. And I was talking to a group that I'm a member of one time, and one of the women there registered to vote for the first time after the talk. And she is over 50, and she voted for the first time in her life. And when we discuss voting and have conversations and meet people where they are, when you tell your friends, that gives people a sense of power to do something, and we can help our communities if we know we're informed about voting and give help and not just receive it, which is really powerful and wonderful. So that's what Rev Up can do for your community and the people in it. Next slide, please. Here are just some pictures of some famous disability activists. There's Philly Lou Hamer, who's a Black woman with her fist raised in power. There's Ed Roberts, who is a white man, and he is in a wheelchair holding a sign that says civil rights for disabled. There's Judy Human, who is a white woman with brown hair and wearing a pin that says sign 504. And there's Lois Curtis, who is wearing a floral printed shirt and smiling. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, Laura. So we just wanted to also share an advocacy story from some Maryland activists. In 2019, 3 blind advocates sued the state of Maryland, arguing that their voting system was segregated and violated the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the size and shape of ballot marking device ballots are different from paper ballots, leading to take away the privacy of ballots and therefore their equal voting experience. Blind voters were experiencing that often they were the only ones in their towns using the accessible ballot marking device machines. Many blind voters even experienced arriving to polling places and the machines not being turned on because poll workers thought no one needed to use it. So, if only 1 or 2 people use this type of ballot, poll workers essentially can tell which ballots are theirs and who they voted for. This was especially a concern and frustration in small towns in Maryland, where many people know each other. So, from their advocacy, the settlement changed some of the procedures around how polling places in Maryland function. And since the settlement, now poll workers have to ask every single voter, do you want to vote using the accessible machine or using a paper ballot? This has really led to more and more people using the machines. And they emphasize this in training, and it's highlighted on their materials as they check in voters. This simple change has led to more people using the accessible voting machine, simply because it flags to more people that it's an option and that anyone can use the machine. The polling place judges have to ensure that at least 10 voters at each polling place use the ballot marking device. Also, it's increased the requirement to at least 50% of polling places in the state of Maryland have at least 2 ballot marking devices, whereas federal law requires only 1 device is needed at each polling place. And lastly, the National Federation of the Blind also collaborated on improving the disability awareness and access training in poll worker materials across the state. So we really love this example because it shows how even small shifts in advocacy can make a big difference. Next slide, please. So thank you all so much for being here and for your commitment to wanting to learn more about disability voting rights. If you have any questions, want to get involved with Rev Up, or need support, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach the Rev Up National team at revup@aapd.com, and you can reach Laura at lpower@benderleadership.org. And together, we hope we can build a more accessible and inclusive democracy. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I will pass it back to Diane.
Great. Thank you so much. I can't think of a better combination or lineup of speakers than we had today. So much resonated with your PowerPoint presentation and your remarks. And just thank you so much for informing us today and educating those on today's webinar. We will make the recording available after today, as well as the slides that were presented by Aubriana and Laura. So everyone will be able to review and definitely share those, because we want this to go broader and wider within your networks, to your constituents, consumers, neighbors, really everyone. Most importantly, voting is a right. There's been a lot of battles along the way and advocacy to preserve the right to vote. And people, again, need to exercise that right. And the wonderful information that was provided for specifically people with disabilities, the resources and the information, we hope it's been very helpful to you. So we're going to check now to see, we do have about, it's got about 15 or so minutes left to be able to handle questions. So I'm seeing there is some activity, it looks like, here in the chat. So let's see. We did show the slideshow. Thank you. Janice Jackson said very informative. Thank you. Got the number here. People are saying the presentations were very informative. That's great to hear about the history. Okay. Got that. Okay. I don't know that I see any questions, but I am going to ask a few. And well, if anybody wants to raise their hand, let me provide that opportunity as well. Don't want to miss anybody who does have a question. Don't think we do. But a question that I have, if you, oh, Janice, you raised your hand. Please go ahead. Welcome. And I know you're on mute. Janice, are you?
There.
Oh, there we go. We got you.
Yes.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes. Well,
welcome.
thank you, Diane. And thank you, speakers, for, giving a lot of good information. And like Diane said, some I knew, some I didn't, but very informative. I just have a question. The political climate that we're currently in, and I know some stations have security. I know there were problems at the last election, and certain parties trying to keep people or intimidating people at the polls, and just a lot of nonsense. So I was wondering if all polls have some kind of security, or just certain areas, certain polls. I mean, because we're now facing some uncertain times, and just the safety of those who come out, so they won't feel vulnerable and they won't feel intimidated, by someone who's trying to prevent them from voting. Or so I was wondering if someone could answer that. Will they be security at all polls, nationally, locally? That's the question I had.
Yeah. Dr. Zelaya, if we could start with your response.
Great question, Ms. Jackson. So, as an election administrator, it's kind of un-American to have guards at the polling place. If you look around the globe, we've done studies and we've read literature where it's very intimidating. We have a police officer or someone with, armed guards inside, like outside of a polling place. So what we do, number one, is Actually, last week we had a series of meetings quarterly, and as we near the election, we have a monthly, and then we have them weekly, and then daily, where we meet with Homeland Security, Montgomery County Police Department. If a particular ballot drop box or early voting center or polling place is located, let's say, in the municipality of Rockville or city of Gaithersburg. We work with their local police department and also with the county police department. We do ask the officers when they do their routes to get out of their cars, their cruisers, to do a site inspection of the Dropbox location, make sure that they're all under 24-hour surveillance, that we have a camera and eyesight of each Dropbox. The officers at time will also walk into the polling place to see how's everything going, but they're not stationed because of that intimidation factor. Remember, the county is very diverse, and some of our naturalized voters come from repressed countries where armed guards would be in front of a polling place to intimidate voters not to vote. And then we work with also, as I mentioned, Homeland Security and National Security, NSA, and other of the acronyms with the federal government because we're so close to the district line. And so we collaborate, we coordinate, even something as the weather. For example, when we have, I remember there was one year Hurricane Sandy was coming across the Gulf and we had a lot of rain, so we had to mitigate in case there was flooding. So we worked with the Office of Management and Security. We work with the OSHA and also with the National Oceanic Atmospheric Association, just to make sure. So we coordinate whether it's intimidation, whether we get a threat, and even Mother Nature may think otherwise and just dump gallons of water a second. So we really take all of that in consideration. But our goal is never to have armed guards in front of a polling place. That's for us as election administrator, that's un-American. But we do work closely with the different agencies to ensure that not only are our voters safe, but also our poll workers, because remember, they too are volunteers and they're registered voters, and they have the right also to vote.
Yeah, well, maybe I used the wrong word, guards, but maybe security that's in plain clothes, or just some kind of assurance that if something did happen, that there would be someone there. So,
And we do coordinate
but
with
thank
plain
you.
clothes. Where we do plain
Yes.
clothes, yes, we do that. Yes, we don't. Yeah, we coordinate, and especially at times even where we have polling places that are faith-based, we will work with them as well. And also we look, and there's always this separation of church and state, and sometimes we do have private institutions where we rent out their social halls, but we do work with the authorities. It's a very intricate dance that we do in between elections and as we lead up to an election.
But thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Great. Any other questions that anyone has? I'm still monitoring the chat, or anyone else raising their hand.
The phone has her hand
Fawn.
raised.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, my question was already answered about having plain clothesmen, so it's not intimidating or making it obvious to anyone. Now, I know you work with Montgomery County, but is that something that you could coordinate for like Baltimore County, Baltimore City?
Yes, I know that every single county, we have work groups that work across jurisdictions. And after every election, we also do best practice and we have conferences where we come up with new ideas. Number one, as it pertains to security, also as it pertains to equipment and line management. But yes, we do a lot of, especially, for example, Montgomery County, we border Howard, Prince George's, and Frederick County. So we work closely with them as well. If there's any known or threats, we communicate amongst the 23 counties in Baltimore City.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Great question.
Great. And I want to acknowledge Sammy Ray Hampton, who is on our team as an independent living specialist. Please go ahead, Sammy Ray.
Hi, I actually have two questions, if that's okay. I I have my first question is, are there things in place so that people with disabilities can volunteer as poll workers?
Yes. So one of the requirements to serve as a poll worker is number one, to be a registered voter in Maryland, and they need to read, write, and speak English. Those are the requirements. Now we actively recruit individuals who have bilingual competency in different languages. Now, all you have to do is apply. You submit an application. You have an interest. Then what happens, and this is specific to Montgomery and is very similar to the other counties in Baltimore City. We'll verify that the individual is registered to vote. If they're not registered to vote, then we will help them, to make sure they're registered they're registered in Maryland. Then they have to take an online quiz. It's about 40 questions, multiple choice. You have to read the materials. Once you pass the quiz, then we have an in-person training session. It's one training session is 3 hours long. And once you attend and pass that training session, and then we will assign you most likely your neighborhood polling place where you will vote on election day. If you're serving during early voting or election day, we will want to make sure you get to vote first, because if you're voting on election day and you happen to be assigned not in your polling place, you're not going to be able to take time out of your responsibilities at that particular location to go. So we would encourage you to vote by mail or vote early. But if you happen to serve in your neighborhood polling place where you vote on election day, obviously we'll afford you the opportunity to cast your ballot. But yeah, a great question. Yes, we do. Regardless of the circumstance, we have two voters who we provide ASL interpreters to serve as poll workers. So regardless if there's something that you would need for us to facilitate you to serve, just communicate that with us and we will help you out.
Thank you. And my second question is for the two ladies about Rev Up. If we're interested in starting a Maryland coalition, how can people get involved?
Thank you so much. These are great questions, and we're thrilled to hear that you're interested in learning more and getting engaged. So please email us at revup@aapd.com, and then we would love to set up a time to chat and get to know one another and explore ways that we can support you getting connected with other local Maryland advocates and disability rights organizations to be able to start building connections and building the coalition. And we offer support and funding and resourcing to be able to uplift and empower the coalitions and your work and your goals. So please reach out to us over email, and we would love to connect more.
And thank you for that, Aubriana. That was a similar question that I had. And when I saw the map, I was, oh, Maryland's not on there. Thank you. Any other questions? Do we have anyone else with any other questions?
I think Chiffon Gray has a question. If not, no.
No, was I supposed to put my hand down?
Oh,
Yeah.
I
sorry.
apologize. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. That's no problem. All right. I don't know that we're seeing any others in here. All right. Well, I want to again thank our speakers for joining us today. Again, this has just been a wealth of information for those of us participating today. Very informative. I do want to show a couple of slides, which I will also let me get this last couple of slides I wanted to share with you. And it's just a
While you
summary.
get the slides ready, I just remember one thing I wanted to share briefly with everyone.
Sure.
And this is kind of an inside tip, but it's available to everyone. So when we have mail-in ballots, usually 45 days before election day, if you have a desire, you could actually go to your local board of elections. You could submit a mail-in ballot and you could vote it there in our office. Okay, so it's and that's what, for example, I have a friend who has some mobile challenges, and one thing that he always had worries was being around a lot of people and waiting in line. He's a very busy person. So I said, listen, you could request a vote by mail, go to the local board of elections. Our office is in Gaithersburg. You could coordinate, a ride up there or take public transportation, and then you could submit your application. And then we have all the ballot styles, and the election official will provide you a voting booth. We have accessible voting booths at our facilities, and you could vote your mail-in ballot, and you could submit it right there and there, and you're done. You don't have to worry about voting in person during early voting or on election day. You don't even have to wait until your mail-in ballot comes in if you want to receive it by mail. You could just go to your local board of elections that corresponds to your residential address, vote your mail-in ballot, and you're in and you're out, and you get your I voted sticker, and you're done. So that's just an insider tip.
That's great, great additional information. I'm just sharing here for more information slide, and these are connected to more information about Rev Up with the website of aapd.com about Rev Up. And then there are resources, there are links for that. Also, upcoming national call registration, also the ability to sign up for the Rev Up newsletter that they publish, and then to also contact them as well as Laura. And then I also am sharing here our info at innow.org for anyone that has any follow-up questions that you'd like to send our way, as well as our website. And then let me get this back. With the conclusion of today's webinar, I want to be able to preview the upcoming, get this slide here, the preview of the upcoming subsequent I Am series that we are excited to offer in conjunction again with the statewide Independent Living Council and our fellow Centers for Independent Living. So those titles in November, the scheduled topic will be Building Community Power Through Advocacy. In December, understanding how the OBB Act of 2025 will affect Medicaid. January, and let me just give those specific dates. November is the 17th. So again, these are all scheduled for the third Monday of the month, with the exception in January that does fall on Martin Luther King Day. So it'll be a date to be determined. December 15th is that date for that month, understanding how the OBB Act of 2025 will affect Medicaid. January, Voices and Advocacy. February 16th, Social Security and Disability Benefits. And finally, on March 16th, Building Stronger Independent Living Communities. So that will conclude our session for today. And I am thrilled to, again, thank everyone who is joining us today here. And we will have the slides available. So please spread the word when you're able to share this information. And thank you all for being here today. Hope everyone has a great afternoon. Thank you for being a part of this.
See you next year, everybody. Make sure you register to vote.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day, everyone.
You too.